Hello, 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 amigas, and welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. Super excited to have this beautiful soul here with me. We get to talk all things design, amigas, and she's got a really unique story on how she started designing. She is actually the founder of Loza Space and Design, and you can find her all over Instagram, and we're going to be making sure to put her on the show notes so that you can find her, and we're going to tag her on Instagram and all the things. And I'm so excited that I have this opportunity to have her here because she has a really unique story on how she started this. And as always, amigas, you know, we always like to talk about who they are from the beginning, and then we start talking about the business itself. But before we start anything, hello, Monique. Welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.
Hi, good morning, Jackie. Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, when I was first introduced to you and I started following your page, I was like, oh my God, such an inspiration. And initially I was like, oh my God, should I do this? Can I be on this podcast? Do I have something to offer? And I feel like we always question ourselves, but here we are. And thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to be able to share what I've been through and how I can possibly inspire someone else starting, or what, you know, if they've been through the same situation that I have. So here to be an inspiration for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. You will definitely be an inspiration. Not only to them, but to me. You are already an inspiration. So thank you so much for being here on Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. So, Amiga, okay, so you and I met through my sister-in-law, and Jessica, and she was like, Jackie, you have to meet her. She is a badass, a queen, an amazing soul. And I said, okay, well, let me talk to her. And amigas out there, let me say something. She's all that in a bag of chips. But amigas, so here's the thing, Monique. So I always like to go back in time because I think it's super important to establish who you are, where you came from, the family dynamics, and how all that started and gradually went into your business. So, amiga, where are you from?
I grew up in Maywood, California. Exactly. You know, Latino community for sure. My both parents are Mexican, from Jalisco and Michoacan. So
oh my God, that's exactly how my parents are. Oh my God, how funny.
My dad is from Jalisco and my mom is from Michoacan, and they were, you know, born and raised in Mexico, came to the States when they were very young. They started off in TJ and then worked their way across the border, you know, came to East LA. That's where they lived when they first moved here, and then they moved to Maywood, and that's where they established their home, and they've been there for 50 years now.
And so...
Go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, I'm like, were you born in East LA or were you born in Maywood?
I was born in HP.
Oh, wow. Well, it's all around the same area.
I mean, it's the same area, but I was born there. But yeah, I grew up in Maywood. Maywood is my home, and those are where my childhood memories are for sure.
Oh, wow.
But I'm the seventh, from 8 kids. And so I grew up in a huge family, and like most Latino cultures, it's like all about family and so many siblings and tias and primos and, you know, the whole huge family. Right. So that's my foundation is family for sure.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah. So I take it you went to high school in Huntington Park?
I went to high school in Bell.
Oh my goodness, another city. Okay, amigas, for those of you who are not from LA County, these cities are very small micro cities within LA County. Like literally, like you could be 1 mile out and you're in a different city. So So just for perspective for anybody out there who's listening out in the universe, because this podcast is heard all over the world. So just to give them perspective. So
yeah, tiny little cities.
Tiny little cities, but it's all relatively close by. Okay, so tell me about high school.
Well, in high school, I mean, I had a really strong group of core girlfriends. And till this day, we're still very close. There's 8 of us.
Oh, wow.
And we've been able to maintain our friendship for over 30 years. And honestly, it's been such a blessing for me to have had such a grounded group of girls by my side. And I don't think that my life would have been the way it is now if it wasn't for them. So yeah, I have a really strong group of girlfriends and no drama. You know, I feel like we tend to judge each other a little bit, but I feel like judgment is good sometimes because it helps us grow, you know, or like see different perspectives from someone else. But it's all love, you know. At the end of the day, it's all love. And so I've been blessed to have such strong friendships with women from early childhood, and yeah, till this day we're still really good friends. In high school, I loved to dress up. I was always in like high heels, and people would be like, "Why are you wearing high heels in high school?"
Oh my God, yeah.
You could hear like my heels through the hallway.
Los tacones.
Like, coming. Yeah, and that was like a hard stomper. So it was like, why is she wearing high heels to school? But you know, that was me. That was my personality. I loved dressing up. When I was younger, I wanted to be a designer. I wanted to design clothing, and in high school, I made my own dresses. Like I designed my own prom dress, my junior high dance dress. Like all my dresses that I wore in high school, they were all designed by me, and it was just like my creative side, and it was something that I always wanted to do. You know, as a young girl, is design. Mm-hmm.
How fun. You know, well, you and I are very disparate in ages. Like I'm going to be 51 next month. And so life for me didn't, you know, there was no digital space, nada. There wasn't even computers. So at the time, I really wanted to be a fashion designer. But I convinced myself that you don't know how to draw, so how the heck are you going to be a designer? That was me. As a little girl, I'm like, okay, I'm good, I'm smart, so I'm like, I'll be a lawyer. So who knows what life could have been had I followed my passion in creativity, right? But, you know, as they say, no pasa nada. Things happen for a reason, you got to just go with the flow and figure things out along the way. So here you are, this super creative individual. You graduate from high school. Do you go to college to receive a graduate degree?
Yeah, I actually went to Cal State Long Beach. I was the first girl. So I have an older brother. His name is Armando. He was the first one of us from our siblings to get accepted to college. And so I really admired him. I looked up to him, and I was like, okay, I'm going to follow in his footsteps, right? So I applied to colleges, and my older siblings never were, you know, pursued higher education, and it was just a struggle, I think, for us in the Latino community. Was like, find a job, you know, make money, you know, help the family and things like that. And so I don't know, my parents never really pushed college. I know for some people it was like, oh, mija, you have to go to college, you have to, you know, get a higher education, and that's why our parents come to this country, is for those opportunities. But I think in my household it was not pushed, you know, education was not a priority. Even though, our parents pushed us to go to school and all that, but I don't think it was talked enough, you know. It wasn't like, you know, you're gonna go to college. It was more like, for me, my mom, I don't know if it was just the mentality, you know, it was just, my mom was like, find a rich man, you know, find an American man, you know. Like, and out of all my siblings, like my sisters, so I have 3 older sisters, and I'm the youngest of the girls. And, my mom, she's and this isn't, you have to talk about it in our culture. I feel like my mom, she's like a darker Mexican. And so even in our culture, I feel like there's racism in the Mexican culture, and so I think with my mom, she experienced some of that, when she was younger. And so I was like the lightest of her daughters. And so she had me on this like pedestal, was like, you're going to find a rich white man to like take care of you and things like that. And so I always like had that in my mind, and I don't know if it's like a defiance of what your parents want for you, but I was like, no, I don't need a rich white man, It was like, I ended up marrying a Mexican guy that had no money, and it was just, I don't know if it was just like wanting to defy her, but I think she instilled that in me, and now going through therapy and, trying to understand our behaviors and things like that. And it has so much to do with what you're instilled with, the ideas as a child, And so I had that in my mind, for a long time, was depend on, your partner.
On a white man.
On a white man.
That is so, like, very specific. Wow.
Yeah.
It is very, yes. I mean, it's... I didn't have that experience, quite the opposite. But I think at that time, my family was a bit progressive in that idea, because they're not educated at all. Yeah. But because they, in their hearts, they, were so indoctrinated to believe that we are in struggle and that sacrifice and that these are the things. Right? So I guess they did not want that of their kids, meaning us. And so they're like, no, you got to get that American dream, the go to college, be somebody, all those things, right?
Right.
Interesting with your mom, like that she was more of like, no, cásate con un gringo. Is that what she was saying?
Yeah. Un americano. And I don't know if it was when she first came to this country. Yeah. She said that she would take care of kids, right? And so she worked at a very, very young age, maybe. I think she said she was like 14, 15 years old. She worked and took care of, she was a nanny. Yeah. And so I don't know if it was like that vision of herself, like, hey, you know what? Maybe if you marry into someone like wealthy, an American, like you're going to have a good life. And so I don't know if that just kind of stayed with her. I think we're just an outcome of our circumstances. And so maybe that's what she thought was going to be like an easier route for me. I have no idea. Right. But, when I graduated high school, I wanted to study abroad, and I wanted to go to Paris and do the whole thing, and my mom was like totally against it, and she's like, no, you can't do that. How are you going to travel on your own? What if something happens to you? Te van a robar, Yeah. That was always like her worry, like something bad is going to happen to you. So like she was just so overprotective of me, and had me on this pedestal and had me in a bubble. And so I feel like after therapy and many sessions of that, I feel like that was a struggle for me, like breaking out of those expectations and releasing that, because I feel like as when your parents tell you like, okay, I want you to do this, or like they have you so high up, and you have yourself so high up, and then you don't accomplish certain things, that you start reflecting inside like, okay, well, what's wrong with me? Where's that desire? Where's the motivation at? And so those are things that I obviously struggle with. But yeah, I mean, I was 19 years old. I was going to college, and I wanted to study abroad, and I wanted to go to FITM. You know, that was my school of choice, you know, besides Long Beach. And my mom was like, no, it's too expensive. Like, I'm not going to pay $30,000 at the time, I think it was, for not even a bachelor's degree. You know, it was just an AA or whatever in arts. So I ended up going to Cal State Long Beach, and I was there for 2 years.
Did you pursue design there?
I started doing business. So I figured, you know, at the end of the day, business is going to be the foundation of the design, and the design will be the creative aspect. But I wanted to learn business. I wanted to learn, you know, about the economy and business practices and how to run a business and how to manage a business. And so I started taking that direction, and I ended up falling in love and like getting pregnant at 19 years old. And so school kind of took a back burner, you know, and so it was a struggle. It was a struggle for me, because it was like, do I pursue my education, or now I'm pregnant. I'll never forget this day. It was, I was taking a summer class because I was trying to finish a little bit faster. And so I was taking a summer class, and I was working a retail job. And my first car was a little Geo Prism, right? And so it was like the manual roll down windows.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was like 6 months or 7 months pregnant, and I'm going to school. It was freaking hot. I had just gone out of work, and I'm on my way to school. And I'm like trying to roll down the window from the other side, and I'm like reaching, and I'm just like sweating, and I'm like rushing to class. And then I get to class, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, it was so hard for me at the time. I was like, I can't do all these things. Like, it was just so hard to balance. And, you know, it just took a toll, I guess, on me. And so I put all my dreams, all my aspirations, I put them on the back burner. And I became a mom, and I started, you know, going the safe route, going for a job, and then raising my family and having kids and getting married and the whole thing. And so all my creative side was just pushed away. It was pushed to the side. Back burner, yeah. And I feel like when we do that and we choose other things and other people and other people's desires for ourselves, we kind of chip away at who we are as individuals, and we chip away at our soul. And so I feel like for many years that was me. You know, I put all the creative things aside. I put all my desires and my wants and my goals on the side.
Yeah.
And then my goals shifted. You know, my goals shifted.
So speaking on just putting everything aside, I think that is, as a culture, we're indoctrinated to family first.
Yeah.
So it's already ingrained in you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'm sure it's many immigrant communities have the same kind of vibe, if you will. But because we're Mexican, this is who we are. This is how we grow up, and it's every Mexican family, and it's up to us to break that, to you know, pour onto ourselves and live through the overflow to give to others.
Right.
And so at some point, you said, enough is enough.
Well, no.
No. Okay, please go.
So, no, not at all. I think I was pushed. I was pushed into self-love.
Ooh.
So
I love that.
Yeah, I was pushed into self-love, and honestly,
Who pushed you?
I live by this quote. So I honestly don't know, and I can't recall who says this, but redirection for me, rejection is redirection.
Yes. Yes.
And I absolutely believe that 100%. So in fast forward to 2015, I have 4 kids. And at this time, I already have 4 kids. And, I have a home, I'm working, I have a husband. Life seems to be going good, right? So I ended up finding out my husband at the time, he was cheating on me for I don't know how many months or a year or whatever the case may be. And I've had this issue in the past with him of infidelity, but never this severe, right? It was just like a relationship that was going on for months. Ooh. And so I had found out, and it was just like everything kind of blew up. Yeah. And it basically like broke me completely. And I felt like throughout the relationship there was always like little infidelities and things like that, but I always looked the other way. In our culture, it was like, you stay with your husband, you work on your marriage, you don't give up. And it's like the man you marry through church, that's the man you have to stay with, know, and it's like, and that's our culture. That's what we do, as Mexican women, is we provide for the house and, we raise the children. And I think that if it wasn't for that moment of heartbreak and, just everything that I had went through during that time, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. And I'm very grateful for that happening, because for me, it was like a wake-up call. And if that moment had never occurred, I'd probably be unhappy.
Right, yeah.
And not fulfilled, and I probably wouldn't have self-love. Yeah. And so, honestly, I think at the time, obviously, you're distraught, your world is falling apart, you think like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why, but it now that I look back, I just think like, wow, it's just such a blessing. And it just it woke it just woke up a sleeping giant for me. You know, and that moment was a transitional point for me in my life. I think in my past relationship, I allowed someone to just chip away at me and just chip until there was nothing left. And it took me many years to rebuild myself and my self-confidence. And I think initially it starts, and this goes to all women like that feel this way. I feel like initially for me, I started rebuilding my physical strength because my internal strength and my emotional strength and my mental strength wasn't there. Yeah. And I started focusing on the physical, the instant, right?
Yeah.
And so I felt
the exterior versus the interior.
The exterior. Absolutely.
Because the interior takes a lot longer.
Oh my God. You're telling me. The interior takes decades.
Yeah.
But the physical, it doesn't take that long to see a change, to see a result. And so I started there. I started with the physical. And so I started working on myself physically. And in turn, it just started healing my mental. It started healing my emotional. I started feeling better about myself. I started looking inwards more. I started realizing my own patterns. I mean, because at the end of the day, there's always two people in a relationship. If something failed, it probably wasn't all him. It it was a mutual thing. Maybe I wasn't the best wife or the most understanding partner. I mean, there's endless possibilities of why, things happen. But now I feel like I've grown so much during that process. And honestly, at the end of the day, is like self-love.
Yeah, yeah.
Self-love is like the ultimate thing that we as human beings need to work towards, because as you start loving yourself, you start projecting that love for everyone else around you, and you just project love. And I feel like human beings that we are in every single relationship, we project whatever we feel inside.
Right.
And it's all what it is. And I feel like now that I see that, I can empathize with people more, and I can understand people more, because at the end of the day, it's like, it's not anything against me, but it's more of what they're going through in their own internal struggles that they project onto me. So I feel like that's how, human nature is. We just kind of project off each other. And if you don't have self-love, you don't have love within yourself, then you're projecting negativity. You're projecting, everything that's opposite of love. So right. I again, if that situation, if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. Right. And 22 years later, 2019, I finalized my divorce. I call 2019 my pivot year.
Okay.
So 2019 was my pivot year. That's when my divorce was finalized. That's when I started doing therapy. I started reflecting. I opened up Loza Space Design. I pushed boundaries. And I feel like, we ourselves, we put limitations on ourselves. Just like how you said, I don't know how to draw, so how can I be a fashion designer? Yep. And I think, we put ourselves down. We put limitations on ourselves. And when you start having self-love and realizing that, possibilities are endless, you open up to opportunities and doors open. And it's just weird how everything just kind of manifests itself, and it just like things open up for you. Yeah. And it all starts within.
Yes. Speaking my language, girl.
It all starts within.
Absolutely. You're speaking my language. There's so many little nuggets that you saying, and I'm like, oh, I got to come back to that because it's so important, Yeah. I feel like everything you're saying is just super aligned with my brand and what I love about this podcast, that it's so exciting to bring people like you who are very successful, but your backstory had to happen, had to redirect you into who you are right now. And I love what you said about you were pushed into self-love. And I'd love for you to, I know you were talking about therapy. Was that part of being pushed into self-love?
No. So, no, I think the moment where I had a breakdown. I had a breakdown and I had a breakthrough at that moment. Yeah. So very briefly, I'll say this story. I feel like women, or even people in general, they have a cap, right? Like a top off type thing. And my top off was, and I'll never forget this day. I was in bed. And I was talking to my partner about why he continued to do this to me, why he continued to hurt me in this way and jeopardize our family and our relationship. And I asked him, like, you know, what is it about this person, you know, like, why? And his response was, I don't know, I just talked to her about my day, like, about, you know, what's going on in my day. And to me, that was like, well, that's something that you're supposed to talk to me about, you know, like, I'm your wife, I'm your partner. And I remember, like, I just had this, like, so much anger, like, that just built up, and I lost it. Like, I completely lost it, and I just became violent. And I'm not a violent person, and I just became violent. I so much emotion was coming towards me, like, I just, like, I became physical, and I feel like, you know, I snapped, and this is not the person that I want to see. This is not the person that I want to be. And I remember he tried to control me, and I was just like, I had lost it completely. And I was like, what is going on? Who am I? Why am I here? Why am I in this, like, state of mind? And I broke down, and I remember, like, he left the room, and I'm in the restroom, and I'm hugging the toilet, and I felt so sick to my stomach because of who this person came out to be, and the anger that was there. And I remember hugging the toilet, and I remember saying, like, God, and this is, like, I called to God, like, I was like, save me from these feelings, save me from not loving this person anymore. I was like, I don't want to love this person anymore. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I will love you. Like, I just want to love you. And save me from these feelings, from this hurt. And at that moment, I was like, I have to love myself. Mm. Like, I have to love myself. Right. If he's not going to love me, who's going to love me? And I was like, and I don't know if it was God talking to me at that moment, but I literally felt like, okay, if he's not loving me, I have to love myself. And I have to pick myself up. And that was, like, the moment where it clicked, and I prayed about it, and that moment was like God telling me, like, I love you, and you are gonna love yourself. And so that's when I chose myself. I started choosing myself from that moment on.
Ooh, I love that. Oh my goodness. You know, I always say, in moments of happiness and in moments of need, call on to your ancestors, your guides, God, your creator, whoever that is, to carry you through, either in the happy state or in the on the unhappy state, because you know, it's challenging to carry everything by yourself. Absolutely. It really is. It really is. You know, and so I commend you for that, for like letting God, letting you be you, and coming to him, right? Yeah. Come to him to heal you from that broken heart. Because, I mean, you know, one of the things is, like, when you enter into, you know, a marriage, and, I mean, I've been married now I'm going on 18 years. We've had our struggles, and it's, you know, that's just the way life is, right? Absolutely. You get kids, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, if you love yourself completely, and you respect your partner completely, anything is possible as a union through God's grace. Now, something happened in your relationship that just faltered, it just went uneasy, and you sought God. And then I'm curious to know, you got the divorce, and I from my understanding, you're married to him, correct? A second time?
No. We never got remarried. Now, I will say this. The way I love hard. I've always, so in my family, and you ask all my siblings, we're not all affectionate. In the cultures, it's not really like, we're very like, how can I say this? In the Latin culture, it's like the man is masculine, the women are feminine. Yeah. And we play our role, right? And in our household, at least in mine, my brothers never really cleaned or did any of that stuff. The women were always cleaning the house and, providing a home and building a home. And there was not a lot of like physical love or, not a lot of showing of emotions. But I feel like for me, I don't know if it was because I was the baby of the group. I've always been very emotional, very loving, very touchy. And I think that did come from my mom. So with my older siblings, I feel like as you parent all your kids a little differently because of the different stages you are in your life. Right. Even though you think you parent them the same, you really don't. I feel like, my mom, when she was younger, she was probably a little bit more stressed out because she was a new mom. They were struggling. They didn't have a home yet. And so the way she parented my older siblings are different than the way she parented me. And so I think when it came to me, it was like, and then I was like this güerita baby, that was like,
the golden child.
The golden child, yeah. So she, I feel like she poured more love into me.
More love into you.
And so for me, I think I kind of, received all that love and affection from her. And so I became this like really affectionate and loving sibling. And so even now, my sisters say like, oh my God, Monique is the most loving and affectionate because I'm always like hugging them and telling them I love them and with my siblings too. And so I feel like I'm that person, I'm very affectionate and I'm like very kissy and touchy and I don't know, it's just the way I am. And so with my relationship, I feel like I love you. And once I love you, it's like I'm always going to love you and I'm never going to let that go. And so I think it was very hard for me to remove that love. And I give grace to people that have experienced that. Like, I try to understand him, my partner at the time, like, why is it that you did that? What are you struggling with? And I feel like because I have self-love and I love myself, that I was able to project that onto other people and try to understand, like, where are you coming from? Where's your heart? Where were you at that time that you felt the need, to not to step out on our marriage? And so, we always maintained a very good co-parenting schedule and things like that. And so I think at the end of the day, there was always still love. But, unfortunately, we're not together. We're not together. And I feel like there are certain things for me that I'm not willing to accept anymore. And infidelity and disrespect is not one.
Right.
And I think I've given so many chances, and I think that's a result of just loving too much. And like, can you love someone too much? I'm like, I think you can. I think you can, but then at the same time, it's like you also need to have more self-love and more love for yourself than you do for others, because someone else will disrespect you anytime. And if you allow continuous disrespect, it's like, am I really practicing that self-love? Right. Am I really doing this like every day? And that's a choice. That's a choice. And I gave that person multiple chances, and I just feel like not everybody's on the same path of self-awareness. Not everybody is on the same path of healing themselves and healing their past trauma. Not everyone's on that path, and sometimes you just have to let those people go.
Yeah. Set them free.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm going through right now, actually. You know, is like I've had to rebuild, you know,
since
my life
2019.
a couple times. Yeah. And actually, what has helped me out this time around, and every single time, I think we as humans, we go through a struggle, we always lean to a spiritual healing, right? Like something bigger than ourselves, because we can't understand the circumstances we're put in, or we don't understand why we're going through certain things, and why me, and why this, and why that. But I think at the end of the day, it's like we have to surrender to what we're going through and allow these things that we're going through to teach us and to help us understand that life is struggle. Life is struggle, but it's also beautiful. Mm-hmm. And when you struggle, that's when you create. And when you struggle, it's like that's when it shows your like character. That's when you develop habits. That's when you change. And honestly, I feel like that's a blessing.
Yeah.
You know, it's a blessing.
I can see that.
It creates opportunities.
Oh, 1,000%. And I love that you were saying about it's in that struggle that you're learning to create.
Yeah.
And I could imagine that it was an impetus for you in your business, in design. Like this, you know, it allowed you to give you the breath of it all. Like, okay, I can invest my time and energy into this beautiful space and not focus on what has happened, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it allows this breath, this depth, right? And so I really want us to get a little bit into your design inspiration as we are getting closer to the end of our interview, because I really want people to understand that the way you design things, you know, I think would allow the person who's listening to this podcast to dig into themselves of creativity and not to be, you know, sulking and living in the vibration of a struggle, rather than pull yourself up and put it into creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I think what sparked my desire for design was my home. So when I redid my home in 2015, I loved the process, right? And even when I was younger, I loved designing and creating. And I used to go to downtown LA in the fabric district and just admire all the different fabrics and the colors and the textures, and wow, I could do this with this material and things like that. And so then when I started redesigning my home, I fell in love with the textiles and tile and the different stones. And at the end of the day, it's all beautiful creations, right? Like textures and colors and how to put things together. And I just fell in love with that process. And so my sister, she's a realtor. And at the time, you know, she was getting inquiries about like, hey, I need help redoing my house. And then she would be like, oh, my sister just redid her house, you know, give her a call. She did such a great work. You know, she did such amazing work. And so that's how it started. And so she opened up her mouth. And I was like, she has a big mouth, right?
Yeah, well, thank God. Thank God for her mouth.
Thank God. And so my very first interior design client was Eddie. His name is Eddie. Well, I don't even know his last name, but because I didn't really deal with him on a one-to-one basis, but he is Canelo. Well, you know Canelo, the boxer.
Yes,
He's
yes,
his
yes,
trainer.
Yes. Oh, okay.
So the project was my first multi-million-dollar home that I designed, and I did such a great job. And I'm like, kudos to myself, right? I was so proud of myself because at the moment I was like, wait, can I actually do this? Can I actually do this for a client? Can I actually do this for a living? And obviously there's self-doubt and there's all this, questionable things in your mind. But I think at the end of the day, you just do it, right? You just do it. And if you do it from love and you do it from a place of like, hey, I want to create something beautiful for you. And so it came out so nice, and they ended up loving the entire project. And then they purchased another home, and then I redesigned the following home. And so that's how it started. And I was blessed to have like my very first clients be multi-million-dollar projects.
Right.
And so to me, that was like such a blessing, because I was like, if I could do this, I can do a $2,000 project. I can do anything, right, really. And so I think in the beginning it was like I was setting my limitations, but yeah, it was something that I loved doing, and it just expanded my creative process. And so that's how it started. And then I purchased an Airbnb and then redesigned that Airbnb, and I was getting so many compliments on the home and how inviting it was, and that's how it started. It really was just me wanting to create spaces for people to really enjoy and feel at home and feel like, wow, this is such a beautiful space. Right. And for me, it was more like I want to create a space where you feel like you're home. You feel where you can relax, where you can enjoy, where it doesn't feel like where you're stressed out. I just want to create something light and airy, and those are my designs. Like, I'm not eclectic. I don't have a lot of masculine designs. Like, a lot of my design is bright and airy and positive and cozy at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so, and that's something that I always tell my clients is, you have to look for a designer that suits your needs, right? So I'm not a designer for everyone. I'm not a designer for someone who is eclectic and, wants something very bold and things like that. That's not the way I design. That's not my aesthetic, Yeah. And so I always tell people that you have to find a designer that's going to be to your liking, to your design needs, and to your aesthetic, to your style. Right. And so that's my style. My style is warm, is light, it's cozy, it's modern, a hint of modern, but also traditional in some sense. Yeah. And so, and that's how I found my style, and that's how I found my design. And little by little, I just started, getting clients, and I don't really do a lot of marketing because I'm still a small design firm, and so I have myself as the designer, and then I have my brother who does all my installs. And he works for other designers as well. He does installs for higher end designers. Yeah. But I'm blessed to have him because he's the one that does all my installs. So he has a team of people. He has a crew. So whenever I have big projects, I call them up. I'm like, here's the design, and this is what the plan of action is. This is what the project is. And he'll bring his team of people, and he's the one that does and sets everything up for me. So that's how I work.
Oh, I love that. It's so cool. Yeah. Well, I've been looking through the Instagram and I'm like, oh my God, I love this. I love this. I love this. And And as you were saying, that's airy, totally airy. So what is your Instagram handle so that the amigas out there can look you up?
It's loza.space.design.
There you go, amigas. You know where to find her. So do you take small, big, medium, large spaces?
I do it
some
all.
pen?
Okay. I do it all. And the reason why I say I do it all is because I feel like if there's a project that I feel might be too big, I open it up to other designers. I'm willing to work with other designers and bring on team members and things like that. Because at the end of the day, I feel like, you can't say no to work. You can't say no to opportunities. And that's where you're going to learn. That's where you're going to grow. Yeah. And even if it's a small project, like I'm willing to help any family that wants to create a space for their kids or for, in their home. And I'm flattered to be able to be chosen, because there's a lot of designers out there. And at the end of the day, like, I'm just here to create a beautiful space.
Oh, I'm so grateful that 2019 happened for you, because
that's my pivot year.
Yeah, that you get to do what you've been destined to do. But you did it after doing the inner work, like really digging deep, and you were seeking therapy. And it's so important, amigas out there listening to this episode, is that sometimes we are our own limitation, and the way to get out of it is to really create that space and that mindset of like, okay, what is it in me that needs to change so I can grow? And I think that what you've done is so beautiful, and I'm so looking forward to seeing a space with my own eyes. So now you're working with some a customer right now. I would gather you take you don't take like multiple customers at one time, do you?
So the max customers that I take usually is 2 to 3. That's the max that I can handle. Right now, I just finished a home and bidding for another project, and then I'm working on a development for an investor right now out in the Los Feliz area, and that's a multi-million-dollar home too. So I mean, I have projects here and there, and I've been blessed. It's funny how life works, because I've also been contemplating, like, do you want to continue doing interior design? Should I take on like another little side hustle? I have friends who tell me, like, get your real estate license and do flips and do that. And so, I mean, there's room for growth and in this space, absolutely. Because I mean, I have another project coming up in Miami, and so I'm excited for that space. And I think for me right now, it's like, if once one project finishes, another one's gonna come up, and so I've been blessed with opportunities. And so that's how I work, and I've been able to maintain Loza Space Design and continue working and creating spaces for families and business owners as well.
Awesome. I love this. All right. Bueno, amiga, as we are at the tail end of our interview here, I always ask my guests if they could provide 1 or 2 tips on how an amiga can handle her shit. Because, girl, you've been handling it. So what say you?
Okay, so my first tip is, and we talked about it a little bit, is self-love. And, I know that you also quote Young Pueblo, and you've read his books, and I've seen your Instagrams, and I know he talks about self-love. And his 3 points about self-love is, 1, radical honesty, right? Another one is positive habit building, and then the last one I think is self-acceptance. But I also want to add to that is self-forgiveness. that also, I feel like when you forgive yourself for not allowing yourself to grow, or not allowing yourself to have an open mind, or you have to forgive yourself for putting limitations on yourself. So I think definitely my number one thing is self-love. However which way you need to go through that, because it's a learning thing. It's not a one-time thing, and it's a process, and it takes time, and it's an everyday choice. And so I think that for me is the one advice: self-love, for sure.
Oh, yes.
Putting yourself first, because that's the only way you're going to be able to pour onto everybody else, your children, your family, your friends, your spouse. If you don't have that self-love, then you can't function.
Right. No, exactly. For sure.
And then the second thing is, rejection is redirection. That I live with that. And through the times where I've had rejection, where I've had just even rejection in like jobs or relationships, or things like that, it's gonna redirect you to where you really need to go.
Yeah.
And not indulge, or not just stay in that moment where you feel like, oh my God, what is it called, like self-loathing or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just feel like just move it along.
Yeah.
Keep it moving.
Keep it moving, ladies out
Keep it
there,
moving,
amigas. Keep it moving. Well, self-love and rejection is a redirection are super important, and I live by those statements, because I've always believed that if you don't love yourself so much, how are you going to love somebody else?
No, absolutely.
But it's so. I'm glad that you're, putting a pin on it, that it's self-love. We start with that first. And, once you have that, everything's going to work out.
You're unstoppable. You're unstoppable. I promise you that. Yeah. I promise you that, because I feel like if you have self-love, you're not going to accept certain things in your life. You're not going to accept certain behavior. You're certainly not going to accept that. And I feel like when you have self-love, you're going to work on yourself. You're going to work on your physical, your mental, your emotional being, and just create opportunities for yourself. And at the end of the day, like, that's all you need. It's going to create some type of happiness within yourself. Yeah. And then no one's going to be able to fulfill, because no job, no relationship, nothing is going to fulfill that emptiness, or whatever it is that you're struggling with, if you don't have that, if you don't have self-love.
Exactly.
No one can give that to you. No one, no job, or no person.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for sharing this, and I love what you're saying. Self-love. No one can fill that cup but you.
No.
Yeah.
And I wish we would have talked a little bit more about design. I know we didn't really talk about that.
But you know what? But here's the thing. I always allow God to navigate the conversation. Mm-hmm. And this is much needed right now, especially today.
Yeah.
In our society.
Yes.
There's a lot of hurt right now. Mm-hmm. A lot of grief. And it's important for us to get back to like, hey, we're alive. Those that are, despite the horrible circumstances that happen here in LA, that we're still alive, and that we get to still love each other, right? Because we love ourselves first.
Yeah.
So, amen, my sister. We can get back on it and be really specific about Loza's space and design, but they can certainly listen to this episode, and they can certainly go into your Instagram and learn more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm here to help anyone who wants to redo their house.
Yay!
I know a lot of people have been displaced right now, and honestly, it's been so terrifying to watch, and my heart goes out to all those people who lost their homes, because I can't even imagine what that feels like. And I'm willing to help anyone who's ready to rebuild. I know that that's going to be an opportunity for a lot of people. Everybody wants to rebuild their home, and at the end of the day, that's like your core. That's your livelihood, and so I know that's been very difficult for a lot of people, and I'm here for it. I'm here. I've rebuilt myself. I rebuilt my home a couple times, and so it's that process that we're here to help. And
Amen.
Yes, go follow
Amen.
Space Design.
Yes.
And I hope that we can reach more families and more women who want to follow their dreams and just don't know where to start. And you can start there, is like internally with loving yourself.
Amen, sister.
But Jackie, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Monique.
Thank you. Fun.
Awesome. I loved it. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you. And I know I'm going to see you in person, so we'll connect.
Yeah, and we got to give thanks to Jessica, because Jessica was the one to introduce us, and I really do. I love her. I love her so much. She's such a great, positive light.
Yes,
every time I see her. So
yes, she's my
shout out to Jessica.
Yeah, shout out to Jessica. She's actually my. Not only is she my sister-in-law, but she's also my daughter's. Madrina.
Godmother. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I wish she could be my godmother too. I love her so much. But
she's so much fun.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Monique, for being on Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jackie. We'll talk soon.